Thank you for being here today. I would like to say a special thank you to our volunteers, Nancy Coots and Allison Higginson at the question table, Val Butcher and Michael Peltier as our timekeepers, and Al Blumenthal as our moderator. I would like to explain how the meeting will run this afternoon. For those that haven't seen my sheet, you are asked to write your questions on the cards provided at the question table. Questions need to be short and to the point. There are cards and a box for the CRD and for the North Pender Islands Trust. There is to be only one question per card. You may have a maximum of 5 cards per each box. Cards need to have your name on them. You may write questions during the question period after the opening statements, and during the short break we'll have at 1:55. Candidates alphabetically will each have 3 minutes for their opening statements. Next, during the question period, cards will be drawn from the box and read out by the moderator. Candidates in random order will each have 45 seconds to answer the question. Candidates will then have 2 minutes in reverse order for their closing statements. Acclaimed school trustee Anna Hurlitz was going to try and speak today, but she called me this morning with a very bad cold and she felt it was better to keep her germs at home. So we'll all say thanks to Anna for running and for keeping her germs to herself. The CRD candidates will present their opening statements followed by the question period and their closing statements. At 1:55 there will be a short break until 2:05 when the North Pender Island Trust candidates will begin their portion of the program. Thank you for your attention. I would like to introduce the candidates for the position of Southern Gulf Island CRD Director, Stephen Cropper of Main Island, and David Howe, the incumbent of Pender Island. I would ask that Stephen... And alphabetically, we will ask Stephen to begin his opening statement. Thank you, everybody.
I'm Stephen Cropper, and I'm running for CRD Director as I believe that government can serve us and our communities. It can be a problem solver and a community asset. As CRD Director, I will bring a balanced approach to decision making that is open, honest, and respectful. I will be a director that shows up at commission meetings and responds when you need help. I have been active in many community organizations, including 6 years on the Southern Gulf Islands Harbors Commission, for which I was chair. I have a pretty good handle on knowing my way around the CRD. Here are some of the things I can do. I will keep decision-making as part of our communities. There has been a shift to turn community commissions into purely advisory committees, placing community decisions primarily with CRD staff. Our communities need to be heard and volunteer commissioners respected. Recycling, which Gulf Island has worked so hard to make part of our communities, is being eroded by decisions at the provincial level. As CRD Director, I will lobby the province and Multi-Material BC to create a funding model that sustains rural recycling. Cost overruns have become too commonplace on CRD managed projects. Problem solving between the electorate and CRD regarding delivery of services will be made a priority. Islanders need clarity and the knowledge that their director will turn up and work for them. As CRD Director, I will listen and take action on behalf of island communities. I feel I can do a much better job. I would appreciate your vote in this election. I will be the director who shows up to help. I welcome your questions. Thank you.
First, thanks to Pender Post and your staff, Diane, for hosting this and for the turnout. To all of you, I think this is fabulous. Most of you probably know that I'm Dave Howe, and you probably know that my background is financial management. I was raised on the Saanich Peninsula in Brentwood, but originally came from the Lake District in England. Some of you may know that, which gives me a full appreciation for the trust our Preserve and Protect mandate being our #1 asset here on the Southern Gulf Islands. The ongoing challenge is to balance our social needs for our seniors with the year-round job requirements of our young families under this environmental umbrella. All the while compensating for the pullback and increasing costs of our ferry system. I was asked by the prior CRD Director to implement an Economic Development Commission in mid-2011, as I saw it, to address this imbalance. Once I became the Director later that year, that position brought with it responsibilities for 30+ commissions and committees. I believe a list is available at the door. At my first CRD board meeting, the Salt Spring Island Director and I were told we were not included in the Capital Regional 5-year growth or transportation plans, as the Trust and the BC Ferries were not participants. I decided that a collaborative approach to working with CRD staff was the shortest route to success. 2 examples of the results of this approach were helping Pika and the Petrie team to save Brooks Point Park, and then to work with Ed Andrusiak, who's retired on Galliano from the Greater Vancouver Parks, on the Experience the Gulf Islands project. That got us included in the Regional Transportation Plan, which I have with me and you can pick up on the CRD webpage. I see the Director's job as primarily facilitating the work between our 200+ island volunteers that represent us in those various commissions and committees, such as the fire department, libraries, parks, water systems, and docks, and our CRD staff downtown. With all the time commitments that came with my new job, I could see it would be difficult time-wise for me to properly organize the social and economic sustainability piece. So I asked a prior trustee to assist in establishing that organization. My wife, Ine, and I discussed working as diligently for the next 4 years as we have in the past 3, not just because we live here, but to support all the empowered volunteers throughout the Southern Gulf Islands. Thank you to those volunteers. The future is a positive future.
Portion into 15 seconds, and then each of you is to respond to that question within 45 seconds. For the first question, David goes first and Stephen goes second. The first question is from Carl Hampson, and he asks, how do you see the changes in recycling affecting our local recycling centers?
The recycling issue with the province, as I understand it, and I have as my mentor, Richard Philpott, who I would like to thank for the advice on this, is one which I believe needs some time to get solved. And so what I have done with the staff downtown is to come up with a 4-year transition plan starting April 15th of this coming year.
Thank you. Next, Stephen.
Yes, recycling is so important to all of us here in the islands. The end result that we need to come to is at the provincial level. I think we should not let up on lobbying the province to correct what has happened here with the legislation that hasn't worked, and with Material BC, which has been created from the companies that have been involved. So I think the end result is really to have that lobbying take place from all different parts of our community. There certainly needs to be a transition to get to that point. And after speaking with Gary Holman and others on this, I just feel that we will get to that point at some point, but keep the pressure on the province.
Thank you. The next question is, given the increased fares and ferry cutbacks, what alternatives are there for inter-island transportation? That question will be answered first by Stephen.
Who asked the question?
Well, there's many different possibilities here. With inter-island transportation taking different steps, particularly for foot traffic. We have a lot of docks on each of our islands that can certainly serve a great purpose in that regard. We've been looking into, different organizations have been looking into the ability to get people to and fro these islands. I mean, in the old days, we used to be able to get back and forth to the islands for commerce and also for our adventures. I think it's a very important issue, and we need to strive to have alternatives.
Okay, thank you. David?
Could you read that question again?
Sure. Given the increased fares and ferry cutbacks, what alternatives are there for inter-island transportation?
The province actually moves a lot of people around between our islands right now, subsidizes that. They're a lot younger than most people in this room. There are school children. We have spoken with the Gulf Island taxis, and they are interested in working with all of the other water taxis on the southern Gulf Island, of which there's 3 others. The first thing, though, is to get us into the CRD transportation plan so that we can start dovetailing with the province of the BC ferry system.
Thank you. But by the way, that question was asked by Leighton Pullen. The next question is asked by Gordon Suter, and it is, what is being done about an agricultural strategy for the southern Gulf Islands? This question will be answered first by David. That topics,
the agriculture plan came from South Pender trustee Liz Montague early in my term as to establishing it for South Pender, and I suggested that we would support something at the CRD if it was on a Southern Gulf Islands basis. Since then, Investment Agriculture of BC, the Director of Maine Conservancy, and our staff downtown have put out a contract, of which I understand 3 people responded, and that has been awarded, and it's in process now, and imagine it will be dealt with over the next 18 months to 2 years.
Thank you. The next question is from Peter Parry. He's used some abbreviations here.
Whoa.
Have I missed one?
Stephen didn't ask.
Oh, sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. I do understand there's some initiatives underway, which I support. I mean, I believe that feeding ourselves locally is something that we really need to have as part of our communities. The idea of being able to buy produce locally, support our farmers, and to keep things going forward in that direction. I'm fully supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Peter Parry. I don't know what abbreviations he's used here. I hope they mean something to somebody. There has been an MOV between the Trust and the MOTI to construct roadside pedestrian cycling trails whenever road work is done. Where are they? What would you do to make that happen? I think you're first, Stephen, if I'm keeping track of this correctly.
Okay, well, I think we're talking about highways particularly here. Our islands have a lot of areas where we have difficulty and safety issues alongside of our roads. There's places here on Pender, and particularly on Galliano, actually, where there's really narrowing areas. There's this initiative underway to create a safe environment alongside roadways, and also to create trails on our Gulf Islands. I think safety is the #1 issue. I'm fully supportive of the initiatives, and I think we need to find a way of how it's best implemented to protect ourselves and to also create alternatives that way.
Thanks. David?
Yeah, under the Economic Development Commission, the Experience the Gulf Islands trail system has taken up initially the dangerous sections identified by the 4 islands on each island, and we have funded the start of that project with CRD Parks on Maine, from their ferry down to the center, Miners Bay.
Thank you. The next question is asked by Lisa Bale. Moving Around Pender map is working towards developing a community bus. How would you support such an initiative, if indeed you would support this? David, you first.
Yeah, I would support that 100%. I know what MAP is doing, and Andrea Mills has done a fabulous job here. I know they have a bus on Maine, a bus on Galliano, and what we did was bring BC Transit over here to do a study on each of the islands. They have a very successful project they've just completed on Salt Spring. So that would be incorporated into this transportation study, and they have already provided that study in the CRD.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yes, I'm fully supportive of buses on our islands. I think we need to look at the use and our in terms of levels of people riding the buses, but in general we need to get a plan that works. I know over on Main Island the bus had a schedule, for example, but it wasn't picking up folks, so things had to be so things were moved around in terms of meeting the ferry and so forth and so on. So I realize that all the islands are very unique that way, but I am very supportive of not only inter-island transportation, but also of the transportation and different types of transportation on the individual islands.
Thank you. The next question defies my ability to read it in 15 seconds, so bear with me. This question is specific to the administration of the harbors. At present, the Commission under Bylaw 2972 has authority for planning and administering our harbors. The Commission consists of 7 members, CRD Director and 1 person from Galliano, Maine, Saturna, Piers, North Pender, and South Pender. I understand there is a plan to change the bylaw so the Commission would no longer have authority but would be an advisory board only. Do you support this, and if so, why? And that question is asked by Doreen Ball. You get the honor of trying it first, Stephen.
So the question was, do I support it? If yes, and why?
Yes.
Okay. No, I don't support that. I believe this is a move away from of having our decision-making within our commissions and our committees. And so the answer to that is no.
That wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. David?
I'm not going to ask you to read that again, but there is no move presently to change the commission status.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Wendy McDonald, and it's much shorter. How much of the money we pay in taxes comes back to us? David, you go first.
I do have some numbers, and I won't go through them all, but in the $7.4 million that we paid out here from Pender over the last 3 years, 20% of that stayed out, 80% came back. But in addition, we also received $6.7 million in grants. Most of that was the $5.2 million to Magic Lake and $1.3 million to South Pender for the Brooks Point Park. So effectively, we received back $2 for every dollar that we lost to the bigger region system.
Great. Stephen?
I won't dispute that. I just, in terms of being something that's already happened.
Okay. The next question is from David Book, and he asks, what concrete actions would you take to improve relations with our First Nations neighbors? and to recognize local First Nations treaty rights and Aboriginal title on the Southern Gulf Islands. Stephen, you're first.
Well, I think this is one of these things that is an ongoing discussion. Certainly, supporting First Nations, from my standpoint, is very important to all of us. It's one of those issues that I need to gather more information on. And I'd like to say, as part of how I go about decision making, I use a very collaborative approach, and like to discuss things fully. So it's one of those things that I support. I just would like to learn more.
Thanks. David?
Well, I'm not surprised to hear that question from David Buck. I will say that in light of the, most of you know about the Supreme Court decision that came down recently on behalf of the Chilcotin band here in British Columbia, that has significant impact. I think we all should pay attention. Any bands that have not yet got their treaty pinned down or seated, such as the Douglas Treaty, which is the 3 bands that impact our islands, Sayout, Secum, and the Sartlip. Sayout and Secum here, and the Sartlip on Maine. It's important that we have good relations with them, and during this past term, we had a reconciliation series here with Jane Morley and Jane McIntosh that, in fact, has helped a long way towards that goal.
Thanks. Heaney, and he asks, my question is regarding grants and aid. Please tell us who has received grants and aid under your tenure, and if possible, amounts paid, and what do you receive as being, what do you perceive, I think, as being the criteria for improving grants and aid? David, please.
Grants and aid, want the amounts for all of the organizations that we gave grants and aid to? I can give you I have a list, by the way, a complete list of the grant and aids, of which there's probably 50. Is that the question? Is how many?
Point of order. I thought the questions had to be addressed to both candidates.
Yeah, because this isn't.
You're right, because, yes, I would agree with you there, this one, because Stephen unfortunately had nothing to do with the grants and aid. I would say it would be interesting to know, David has the paperwork, you could leave it for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And if you're happy with that, certainly the candidates are open to questions from yourselves after this meeting, so that should probably be addressed directly to the candidate. You're right, it doesn't really apply to both. We'll move on to another question.
The next question is by somebody who hasn't disclosed his identity, and it is, why are CRD noise bylaws so out of date? Why are they opinion-based, not measurement-based, given decibel level and given distances? David, can you take a crack at that one?
Well, I'm not sure I've got the best answer for that one, but I can tell you that my big brother on Salt Spring, Director McIntyre, is dealing with that issue right now as our CRD with the gun club over there, and we will be coming up with the new regulations in this regard this next term.
Okay, thanks. Stephen, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Well, I have been following what's happening on Salt Spring, and there's a number of ways of looking at that, and also adjacent properties and a whole pile of different things, and it's certainly comes under the heading of listening, working through it, and then acting.
And I wonder if we could have the author of this question identify themselves. Peter, thank you.
The next question is, what are your qualifications for the position of CRD Director? And that is asked by Jared G. Stephen, please.
Well, I did mention earlier that I have been on the Harbors Commission for 6 years. and working closely with CRD staff, corporate service, integrated water services as of late. I have, though, been involved with many community organizations over the years, including large arts organizations, the Corleone Men's Choir, which I was on the board for many years. I've done grant writing. I've worked with local communities. I produced community television for many years, and I worked with councils between Abbotsford, Langley, and Richmond. As someone once said, my goodness, you always seem to have been in politics, so I certainly I have a good understanding of what needs to be done here.
David, please.
The qualifications. First of all, we're dealing with people's taxes here, and on the Southern Gulf Islands, that's close to a $6 million budget a year. You need to know something about finance, particularly when you're dealing with government accounting. I have a degree in finance from UBC and a master's in finance. Currently, with the dollars or the needs that we have, and keeping the taxes at the level we have over the last 3 years, I believe that my background qualifies me for the next 4.
Thank you. Liz Montague asks, how will you address the dangerous sections of our roads? I think you go first, David.
How would we address those?
How do we address them?
Well, first of all, identifying what those sections are, and then whether the path, given the discussions with the Ministry of Transport, can be put next to the road, whether that's physically possible, and if not, how they can move off the road, and if so, what that means in terms of negotiating with property owners.
Stephen?
Well, it's a subject that's really important, and it regards all of our safety. The highways, of course, is the people that we need to talk to here, and I'm willing to lobby on behalf of this community and all of our communities to improve our roads on all of our different islands. There's many different spots that can be improved, and I do recognize that.
Thank you. The next question is from Claire Mathias, and she asks, how do you see your role as a promoter of economic development in the Gulf Islands? Stephen?
My goodness, I think this is one of my strong points, actually. I really believe that communities need to, one, brand themselves, and what I mean by that is we need to also have an understanding of what we want people to see as ourselves. So in terms of bringing people to these islands or creating an environment where we are willing to shop in, everything from environmental issues need to be addressed to our socio-economic questions. Everything is something that pulls together. We need to have a viewpoint, we need to talk about this, and we need to lobby for funding and find creative ways of doing this.
Okay, thanks. David?
Would you read that again?
Sure.
How do you see your role as a promoter of economic development in the Gulf Islands?
Well, I see the issue of one of trying to dovetail the job opportunities and the support of local business under the Preserve and Protect mandate. And I think that balance is going to be the main goal to be achieved in the next 4 years for this to be a vibrant, sustainable, and resilient community.
Thanks. Another question about our roads. How do you see your role in the provision of safer roads for pedestrians and cyclists on the Gulf Islands? David, you're first.
Find the money.
Sounds simple. That sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, right.
Stephen, have you got any money?
No, but I'm here to find it. We talked about trails. And roadside trails for bicycling and walking next to roads gets back to the whole safety issue. Yes, it's true. We need the dollars to be able to do this. There's different ways of doing that, and I think we need to look at those areas, have an open mind, and move forward on it. So it's certainly something that's been coming up over the last few weeks, and certainly I think in my mind since I moved over to the Gulf Islands many years ago, that it's one of the things that we need to be addressing.
Thank you. Jean Moore asks, what are the possibilities for affordable and seniors housing? Stephen, please.
You know, I've worked on the Advisory Planning Commission for Islands Trust, actually over on Main Island. The question has come up over there. A lot of this has to do with Islands Trust, but you know, certainly as a director, if I were to be elected director of the CRD, that is something that we need to look at very carefully and discuss with the communities and find out the need and how the best way to implement that is. And certainly that's what has come up in my experience recently. So it does, a lot of this boils down to funding, but it also needs to be addressed by how community plans are looked at and where the community wants to go with this.
David?
I'm actually on the Housing Secretariat, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the Capital Regional District, and have been working with the two trustees currently on Galliano with the Affordable Housing Project that's moving forward, the Galliano Green. And also here with yourself and Carl Hampson and others in relation to the Senior Center. It will come down to a good, solid, sensible business plan and at the end of the day, and I think that there's a fair opportunity. Certainly I will take it forward to the Housing Trust Fund.
Thank you. Peter Binner asks, in what ways has the change to the Southern Gulf Islands Commission that has brought it in line with the existing model of commissions within the CRD caused the residents of the Gulf Islands to lose their community input? I guess, David, you first.
Say the Southern Gulf Islands Commission?
That's what he says, the Southern Gulf Islands Commission. In what ways has changes to
Which
the Southern
commission?
Harbors, I believe.
Harbors?
The Southern Gulf Islands
Okay.
Harbors Commission has changed to what?
In what way has the change to the Southern Gulf Islands Commission that has brought it in line with the existing model of commissions within the CRD caused residents of the Gulf Islands to lose their community input?
Well, as I said earlier, there's no change in the commission and there's no plans to change it. There is a new commission, actually, or new members on the commission here starting this month, and actually Tuesday at 1 o'clock, any of you that are available can come and discuss exactly that.
Thank you. Stephen?
The Harbors Commission has certainly undergone a lot of changes in terms of the ability to listen to comments from our community over the years. I must disagree with the director on this one in regards to nothing planned. I may not have it here with me today, but there's documentation from CRD and Integrated Water that there is a plan underway to change the structure of how services are provided by the Harbors Commission. So maybe there's a misunderstanding there or something, but that is the truth. In regards to the ability of the Commission to serve you as a community, has a great amount of experience, and as some of you know, Integrated Water Services will be where it's at.
Thanks. Good try. Paul Petrie asks, how do your qualifications and experience prepare you to achieve concrete positive results for improving Southern Gulf Islands economy and protecting our sensitive environment? Stephen?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How do your qualifications and experience prepare you to achieve concrete positive results for improving Southern Gulf Islands' economy and protecting our sensitive environment?
I've worked for many years, I mentioned this, in regards with community organizations. Environment has been one of the top things on my list. I believe that, you know, as we move forward looking for solutions, that we need to take, our environment into consideration. And also, of course, the funding and how all that works. What we need to do is have a solution that brings everything together. In terms of my ability to be able to do that, I've proven that in a number of different regards in many of these different community organizations by going forward with funding solutions.
David?
Well, my background, as I mentioned, is business, finance, and job creation, building of teams, management teams that can get things done. On the environmental side, what I did, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, was I asked a prior trustee to assist in developing that Economic Development Commission. And what I wanted was the balance and the viewpoint of the trust in any planning that went forward economically and for job creation.
What are the plans for getting an emergency exit from Magic Lake residents around Shingle Bay to Otter Bay? David?
I believe that's through the national park, if that's the essence of the question. And I believe that's a non-starter at the moment. But as far as a second exit from Magic Lake, we are discussing the possibility of coming from Ketch down Scarf as a possibility with the local parks and so forth.
Stephen?
Yes, I'm not actually familiar with that issue right now, so I don't think I should speak towards it without having all the information in front of me. Thanks.
Jim Petrie has a question. What is the difference in responsibility between the Islands Trust and the Capital Regional District? Stephen?
I get this question actually quite a bit. I mean, if you think of Islands Trust as being basically land use and of course official community plan that revolves around that to serve and protect mandate for all of our Gulf Islands. So if you think of it more as land, bylaws and so forth, and then you think of the CRD as providing the services, everything from emergency services to parks and so forth with all the different commissions. So think of it on one hand services and the other hand primarily land-related issues.
Would you read that again now?
Sure. The question was, one moment please.
Is it basically the difference?
Yeah. What is the difference in responsibility between the Island Trust and the Capital Regional District?
The Island Trust, as I understand it, is land planning and zoning, and the Capital Regional District is certainly everything else that goes up from there. But I do think there is a fair amount of overlap. For instance, the two current trustees are dealing with the waste management issue, and certainly at CRD we're dealing with the same thing. And so I think it's a matter of cooperating, working together, and figuring out where those guidelines fall between the two so that responsibilities can be clearly defined.
Ron Henshaw wants to know, how do we create a viable year-round economy that considers and respects the Island Trust Preserve and Protect mandate? David, you get to do that one first.
Virtual delivery. I thought about that from the very start when Ken asked me about this, and I thought within the Preserve and Protect umbrella, given the backing off of the ferry system, that anything we manufactured had to be capable of virtual delivery. And so I think that's cottage-based industry. Royal Roads University, who Anna and I work with, deliver $50 million of product a year through that vehicle. So broadband becomes an issue, capacity to attract folks that will live here and work year-round from their homes using the internet.
Stephen?
I think I'm going to answer that from a broader standpoint, just in terms of we need to know who we are. We need to, we have all sorts of, we have different issues that we have to deal with on a regular basis here that go all year round. But the overall encompassing, I guess, umbrella of our communities is what do we need? What does it take for us to want to stay here in our communities? And that there's infrastructure questions that need to be answered. There's different, we talked about at length here about funding models and different services. The services here are very important to us. I think we just need to have more ongoing discussion on what we really want our communities to look like. And I'm not saying that it's something that needs to be a huge change or anything. We just need to really be together on this.
Thank you. Ursula Popple asks, how much involvement do you see the community having in the development of a waste management plan for the Penders? And how will the community have their say? Stephen?
To deal with this whole waste management, and I'm going to sort of lump this into the recycling thing too, we need to all be on the same page here. We need to have our different community organizations backing the idea that we need a better system for waste management and for recycling. We need to take that a step farther to other levels of government. The bottom line is we need to be all together on this. I think that's something that we need to be able to decide. What is the best way to handle this? Waste management is becoming a huge issue. It's been there's different changes in the rules with handling waste, and that needs to be looked at farther. And certainly, I will lobby for the best solution.
Would you repeat that? No.
I'm going to have to find it, David. This one. How much involvement do you see the community having in the development of a waste management plan for the Penders? And how will the community have their say?
Well, I think the community has to be involved, and I believe the Trust is trying to do that. I'm sure from the CRD standpoint that we're going to have meetings here next year on that subject, and I would suggest we can bring everybody together like we have today here at the school. I think the only way to get the input is get everybody out.
There are a lot of questions about waste management here that seem to be the same. Let's try this one. David Book asks, what concrete actions would you take to improve relations with our... Oh, I think people are stacking their questions by asking them innumerable times, and that's probably cheating. Here's another one. John Bowers. How much is the current budget for fire protection services on North Pender? And do you believe this budget is too little, too much, or just about right? Stephen, you're first.
I'm sorry, I don't have those figures with me here. I'll just say that obviously fire protection and our safety is incredibly important, and something we need to work on.
David?
Approximately 900,000, and I would say that it's up to the board of or the society's board to come up with that number, which is chaired by Gord Suter. They have an effective board, and for us then to take it forward, or for the director to take it forward to the board at the CRD for approval.
Thanks. I think we're out of time for this segment. I'd like to thank you both for your excellent answers. From my point of view, I think it's a shame that we can't have two Southern Gulf Islands CRD directors. We should be doing something about that. Thanks for your time. We'll take a 10-minute break.
We'll ask the candidates to have their 2-minute closing statements, and then we'll have our short 10-minute break. Reverse alphabetical order, we'll ask David Howe to offer his closing statements first. Thank you.
appears to me that from this discussion that continuity is the most important value for the Southern Gulf Islands for the next director. I don't believe the Southern Gulf Islands has had the benefits of a two-term director, at least if it has, not for a long time. And I know it took me half my term to really get to understand how things work downtown and then be as effective as I can be for you as the community. Being here in the school gym reminds me of a 60s song, Be True to Your School. I would say that on November the 15th, we should be true to the children of this school and our Pender community as a whole. Listen to your heart, the still small voice, which will tell you who loves our Pender community as much as you do, and will represent you well for the next 4 years. Thanks for listening. Come out and vote. A special thanks to the hard work of our campaign support team. And let me just finish with a quick story that happened yesterday. An elderly lady walked into our meet and greet session to say hi to her director. When she saw me, a smile came over her face and she said, "Oh, it's you, my wood chopper."
And Stephen, for your closing statement, thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming out today and supporting the democratic process. The nature of living in communities, and for that matter, the nature of each of us to be individuals, will of course encompass different viewpoints on a variety of subjects that are close to our hearts. My hope is for constructive dialogue that is free from any kind of fear. Decision-making needs to address the greater good of those citizens living within our communities. I will be a director that will put community interest ahead of self-interest and community need above individual wants. When you vote in this election, know that if you vote for me, Stephen Cropper, you will get a director that is open, honest, and respectful. I will respect you when you volunteer and when you bring ideas forward for consideration. I will listen and take action on behalf of island communities. I feel I will do a better job. I will be that someone who shows up to help. Thank you. And thanks very much for all the good work of these people that organized this.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take a very short break. We'd like to start at exactly 2:05. For those people still standing, there are